Okay, so I thought I may as well just carry straight on with part six and strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. And let's carry on with what we were just talking about, like the embellishments, the things that have been debunked, but the things that, don't debunk the whole thing. We're talking things that, yeah, that they have, made people think twice. They've made people, kind of scratch their heads. But, we're still not looking at something that has ever proved the whole thing to, be false or impossible or anything like that. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about before I forget, oh no, I'll come back to it another day, I'm sure. But the 1975 movie showed us blood running down the walls as they were leaving, yeah? Now, that was pure Hollywood, of course. I mean, most people know that, yeah, that no one ever claimed that blood ran down the walls. But then there are those who try to ridicule the Lutz family for saying, oh, but they talked about slime running down the walls and down the doors and this, that, and the other. Green slime, allegedly. And, that of course, that sounds ridiculous, to most people. And, of course, that is something that seems kind of laughable. However, we need to look at that in a different way as well, because the real kind of claim was that they never really said slime was running down the walls or anything like that. What was said to have happened was certain amounts of a green gelatin like substance was found. Some was around sort of door handles, some was found on the wall, and some was found on the carpet. Possibly not even vast amounts of it, but having checked everything, asked the child, "Did you do this?" and found that there was nothing, of that description in the house that could have been, put there as a prank. Told them that what they didn't do this, we didn't do this, so where the hell has this come from? I mean, I've known people say, well, if I saw slime coming out of a wall, I'd be out of there, for God's sake. I wouldn't be hanging around. Well, it's not always that simple, is it? When you're in that position yourself, and you don't really know what's going on. And by all accounts, this was something that was incredibly confusing and baffling, more than scary, to find this green substance that apparently came from nowhere. I mean, you could say, well, was it the kids eating some kind of, a green dessert that they played with and threw everywhere, but I mean, it was, said to have not been the case, that there was no such substance even in the house, so you're talking something that was, quite grounded, quite sort of, well, to some people's mind, probably quite boring, compared to what Hollywood gives us and even what the book gave us, but it's still something weird and unexplainable, maybe, that a family would think, what the hell is going on here? It would just be something odd, but it does seem to have been one of those things that was taken and liberties were taken, embellishments were made, and it was made into something that it really wasn't. Yeah. So that's something that you probably find yourself if you were to look into it a little bit further and, kind of get the recorded or the written interviews with the family themselves, that's more realistically, what was happening there. Now, I mean, as regards to the house itself and where it's built, there are so many arguments to and fro about an American Indian, Native American burial ground being underneath that house. I mean, some people are just so staunchly saying yes, there definitely isn't, or no, there definitely is not. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you kind of get what I'm saying there. Some are very for it, some are very against it. I mean, I suppose, really speaking, without digging up that land, we could never really know. I mean, but then there's other ways to look at this. That that being there, was that really even that relevant? Regardless of what was or wasn't there. I mean, When it came to the investigation featuring Dr. Hans Holzer, he was very dead set that there was an Indian chief there who was very angry about anyone being on his land, and he, was very, very insistent that this was the whole cause of all the problems. And as he connected with this spirit via the trans medium Ethel Johnson Myers. Now, I don't wish to disrespect Dr. Holzer here, because I believe he was a great man who did a lot of good work. But then he was the only one who ever seemed to come up with this Indian, Native American theory. No one else really did, to talk about anything like that, And so we'd also got the alleged story of a devil worshipper by the name of John Ketchum, who was never validated in any way, although there were said to be Ketchums living in Amityville. And there is a road near to the famous house called Ketchum Avenue or Ketchum Road, I believe, yeah. This man himself was never, found to have existed necessarily. Now, there's a couple of ways we can look at that. That they're just not, because if this was really a man who'd escaped trial and execution in Salem, the chances are he's not going to have gone to a new place and left a forwarding address. And so to be looking through, records to find out who he is it that shocking that we wouldn't find anything? I mean, that is just one possibility that I like to put out there that doesn't seem to get mentioned very often. But really speaking, I feel that a lot of it will come back to whatever is or isn't under that house or associated with that ground. We're still looking at something that could have triggered something very frightening and very, kind of disturbing for someone. Because, like we say, and I mean, I know I've said this before, we're talking 6 murders, 6 horrific murders in one location at the same time. And this location was left empty for over a year before anyone else lived there, so this is where we could be talking, the psychic storm that was created, possibly why it was short-lived and never, kind of seemed to affect anyone else. So it maybe we're talking something that was a great big ball of energy that just had to burn itself out or move on. As they do say, energy can be created or destroyed. Sorry, never be created or destroyed. It can only change form. So we could be talking something that moved on. Yeah. So these are, again, a few theories that I'd like to look at and, consider when we talk about these things. But the other thing is, like we say, murders. 6 murders in a house, and we're talking a family who took it on saying, we'll overlook this, we'll try to, not see that as an issue for us, we'll take it as a bargain. And people are very quick to say, oh, they were scammers, that, they created a hoax, they told a load of lies and they tried to make a load of money. I'd like to really ask, how many people out there would have took on that house knowing that 6 people had died there? And, let's look at it in even more simpler, minor ways. There are people, and a good many people, who we all know would go into a potential new home and find out, well, this very sweet old lady who, was very poorly in her later years, she did pass away peacefully in this house. Some people would run a mile from that. Some people just would not be comfortable with that knowledge. And so this is where I feel sometimes, we've got to give a little bit more credit, or maybe a lot more credit, to someone who's living in a place that, housed and hosted, what happened the year before. 6 lives gone within a matter of minutes. And, people are calling them liars for saying that this was a weird house that was hard to settle in. Yeah. So, yeah, sooner than thought, there was part 6, and I'll be back, as ever, with part 7 very soon. Thank you, as always, and many blessings.